fiber optic cable using the Corning Unicam Pretium toolkit. We're going to be terminating both a breakout fiber and a distribution fiber to show you the two different types of constructions and how the terminations differ between the two. So first we're going to go over the definitions of the cable. You'll hear the term distribution and breakout. You'll hear the terms tight buffer and loose tube. When you're talking about audio-visual installations, you never want to use what they call loose tube cable. This is strictly for telecommunications use. It's very hard to terminate and it's very messy to terminate. So we're going to be using tight buffered fiber for all of our fibers, one in distribution format and one in breakout format. A distribution cable is going to be tight buffered fibers with strength members under one jacket. The ANSI TIA 568 specifications for fiber pulling, which is 300 pounds for indoor fiber and 600 pounds for outdoor fiber, are related to this particular construction. So distribution fiber, very small diameter, it's going to be cheaper. One thing about distribution fiber is it should always be installed into fiber enclosures. It should never go direct to equipment. You should always go into a fiber enclosure and then patch out to your equipment using patch cords. Breakout fiber, I like to refer to it as a fiber snake cable in a way, because every fiber has its own individual under jacket and individual strength members. This cable is going to be very large, much bigger than distribution fiber. It's also going to be very durable. If you're going to have terminations going direct into equipment, you want to use this type of fiber. If you're going to have terminations that end users are going to be plugging and unplugging, you want to use this type of fiber. So breakout fiber is good for device to device or from enclosure to device. Another related construction is assembly fiber. Assembly fiber comes in two formats. You have simplex, which is one fiber, and then where they're zip corded together, and that's two fibers. This is used for making patch cords, and it should never be pulled in the wall as hard install horizontal or vertical fiber. Connectors come in two formats. They come in a bag or they come in a 25-piece tackle box. The 25-piece tackle box is only for distribution fiber. You can't use the tackle box for breakout fiber. The reason why is inside the tackle box you only have one boot for 900 micron buffered fiber and you have no crimp ring for strength members. So this tackle box is only for the distribution fiber. The bag is going to have multiple boots and the crimp ring, so you'll have all the parts you need in order to do a termination, whether it be distribution fiber or breakout fiber. This particular one's an ST connector showing as an example. So step one is prepare your tool and your connector. So I'm going to grab my crimp tool, which looks like this. The crimp tool, you want to make sure you have the appropriate setup on it. First things first, make sure it has the appropriate ferrule adapter. This one has the 2.5 millimeter ferrule adapter, which is what I want for SC or ST connectors. If I had LC connectors, I have another one that comes with the package that has a 1.25 millimeter ferrule, very much smaller. So make sure I have the right one in there. I want to make sure that my load bar is released. I want to make sure my cam is released. I'm pressing this red button. After you terminate a fiber, the cam is open like this. I want to close it. So that's the way it's prepared. I'll go ahead and turn on my tool. Now I'll grab my connector. So I have an SC connector here that has 4 parts. I have my connector body, I have my boot, I have the shroud, and I have the crimp ring. I have all the parts. So preparing the tool and the connector, I'll take the connector body, remove the rear dust cap and the front dust cap. I'm going to keep the front dust cap because we're going to use it later on. With the writing on the connector facing up, I'm going to mount this into the tool. So I want to pull the load bar up by pressing the load bar button, seat the connector, get the lead-in tube going out the back, and then allow the load bar to drop down and lock the connector in place. Now I'll drop my VFL coupler down and lock it down. I want to make sure it's all the way down. If it's not all the way down, I'll get an error message. So I'll go ahead and close my tool. If I do not have a yellow flashing light, I have my connector properly prepared. To give you an example here, I will show you what happens. Tool goes down, I don't lock it. I close the tool, I get a yellow flashing light showing I have an error message. In order to reset the tool, you have to turn it off and then on again. So all the way down, latch in place, close. Sometimes you'll see red light sticking out the back of your lead-in tube of your connector, sometimes you won't. If you don't see it, don't panic. It's just because there's enough index matching gel inside the connector to block the light. If you had a little bit less index matching gel, you might see red shining on your hand. I'm going to set my tool aside, and now I'm going to start preparing my fiber. We're going to do the breakout fiber first, which is where each fiber has its own individual jacket. So selecting a fiber, the first step you want to do is to put your boot on first. Just like putting a BNC connector on a coax cable, you want to make sure your crimp tube goes up first. Well, in this case, you want the boot on first. Otherwise, all your effort will be for naught and you'll be cutting off and scrapping a connector. So boot is on. Next step after that is to mark the cable jacket for stripping. There's a template included inside the toolkit that has different sides for your different connectors. You have one side for LC connector and one side for SC and ST connector. We're going to be doing the SC and ST connector. You also have on this form 3 different types. You have jacketed fiber, tight buffered fiber, and then if you're doing a fan out kit on a tight buffered fiber or a loose tube fiber, use this one. Well, we're going to be doing the jacketed fiber, so it shows your different measurements. Mark the outer jacket at 40 millimeters. Then I'm going to mark an additional 13 millimeters. Now I need to remove the outer jacket. One of the changes to this new Corning toolkit is they've got rid of this T-stripper that we used to use to strip off the jacket and added a new cavity on the what they used to call the dual hole stripper. Now it's a tri-hole stripper, has 3. So the furthermost cavity on the very nose is going to be your largest cavity. That's for removing the jacket on a jacketed fiber. I'm going to go ahead and line up my tool, crimp to cut the jacket, release a little bit and pull. And I'm left with my tight buffered fiber and my Kevlar strength members. Now I want to cut the strength members off. A pair of electrician scissors come with the toolkit. You do need specialized scissors to cut Kevlar. So these tools are made for this purpose. Cut the Kevlar. One interesting fact about the toolkit is it comes with a little waste paper basket. When you first use this for the first time, it's going to have a bunch of connectors in it. Corning is generously giving you about 25 connectors to practice with. So I remove the connectors and remove the advertising medium from here.
It's going to have a bunch of connectors in it. Corning is generously giving you.
Now I have a little waste basket to put my fiber fragments and Kevlar and jackets and pieces and stuff like that in here. Next step is to remove the 13 millimeter mark. So it's using the same cavity, trim the jacket and pull it off. Now I have short strength members. I don't cut these off. What I do instead is the copper crimp ring. I use this as a tool to hold these out of the way. It has 2 sides. It has a chamfered side and it has a flat side. The chamfered side goes over the cable first. You go down and you use it as a tool to just gently hold those strength members out of the way. Next step is to mark the secondary buffer, which is this orange buffer, at the 11 millimeter mark. So I'll go ahead and lay this out, and for 11 millimeters from the jacket, I'll mark this. This is the mark where I'm going to have to strip off the buffer too. So I want to strip off all this current, what I call secondary buffer, and then there's another buffer underneath it. Using the tri-hole stripper, I'm going to go ahead and use the center cavity now to take off the secondary buffer. So I'm going to hold this cable very firmly and then do little 1/4 inch bites and pull off this buffer. I want to make sure my tool is perpendicular to the actual fiber itself. It's at an angle. Applications use, it's very hard to terminate and it's very messy to terminate.